Hello everyone, welcome back to the S.War.News channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. Tonight we're reporting on a significant and developing story. According to multiple early reports, Ukrainian forces have struck one of Russia's largest oil refineries, triggering massive fires, large plumes of smoke, and disruption to operations that local and international sources are still assessing. I'll walk you through the exterior picture of the strike as it has been recorded so far, give a long interior view of how the incident unfolded inside the facility and the emergency systems that responded, analyze the performance characteristics of the attack and the defenses that engaged it, outline the safety and mitigation features that mattered in the response, discuss the unique operational attributes that made this event notable, touch on the economics and price implications, energy and security planners, and close with what this means for civilians, regional stability, and international responses, all framed carefully with verified reporting and clear caveats where confirmation is still developing. From the exterior, the scene as captured in circulating video clips and described by officials is dramatic and unmistakable. Towering columns of black and orange smoke rising from industrial tanks and refining units, visible for miles. Nighttime footage shows multiple bright fireballs and secondary detonations as stored hydrocarbons burn and firefighting crews attack hotspots, while daytime satellite and drone imagery being shared with journalists highlights charred areas and emergency vehicles forming containment perimeters around damaged process units. That external footprint, what a viewer sees in the street-level clips, the highway dashcams, the social media uploads, and the satellite stills, tells us the strike reached core processing infrastructure rather than only peripheral storage. Analysts usually differentiate between damage to tank farms, which causes large fires, but more localized, manageable outages, and damage to distillation columns or catalytic cracking units, which can take months to repair and disrupt fuel output at scale. Early public statements from regional authorities and energy companies have been cautious but confirm fires and temporary suspension of some operations while emergency services fight to prevent escalation. First responder convoys, smoke, plume mapping, and airspace warnings compose the immediate exterior narrative, alongside economic signals such as temporary local fuel distribution, interruptions, and insurance alerts. Moving inside the facility to the interior view, this is where the technical, human, and institutional consequences converge, and where the story becomes far more granular and human than a headline suggests. Imagine the control rooms of a major refinery minutes after impact, operators at consoles, alarms blinking in sequence, feed displays switching from routine process parameters to emergency shutdown diagrams as on-call teams execute pre-planned procedures. In the long interior picture, refinery staff would be executing emergency depressurization and inerting protocols for affected units, isolating feedstock lines, initiating foam and high-volume water spray systems on tanks, and coordinating with municipal fire brigades and industrial fire specialists who have training for hydrocarbon pool fires and bleave prevention. Medical bays near the plant are triaged for potential burn and inhalation victims. On-site emergency shelters house personnel who cannot be evacuated immediately due to road congestion or ongoing flaring risks. Communications officers are managing multiple channels, internal incident management systems, corporate crisis centers, regional civil defense hotlines, and real-time liaisons with national regulators. The interior also includes a forensic aspect. Engineering teams will be taking immediate steps to preserve evidence for investigators once it is safe, recording sensor logs, preserving CCTV footage, and identifying damaged valves or piping for later metallurgical and failure mode analysis. From a human perspective, the interior is also the story of fatigue and improvisation under stress. Shift workers who have trained for drills now find themselves executing real shutdowns while coping with the emotional weight of watching massive industrial systems burn. and logistics coordinators scramble to reroute fuel, secure temporary storage, and alert downstream customers about supply disruptions. The extended interior view also brings up environmental control systems there, monitoring stations that must be checked for toxic plumes, wastewater containment basins that require protection against firefighting runoff, and the painstaking work to prevent contaminated water entering local rivers or groundwater. These interior measures are deliberate, often slow, and require specialized teams whose work will determine the timeline for safe cooling, repair, and restart. In terms of performance, the attack exhibits several notable attributes that bear careful analysis. The reported ability to penetrate into the refinery complex and ignite core processing units implies accurate targeting, sufficient explosive or incendiary effect to breach protective enclosures, and timing coordinated to exploit vulnerabilities such as routine maintenance windows, shift changes, or gaps in local airspace defenses. Reported footage and official statements suggest multiple impact points rather than a single strike, which is consistent with an intent to overwhelm firefighting capacity and create cascading failures in critical process systems. From the perspective of the defenders, performance is measured not only by how many incoming munitions were intercepted, but by how effectively layered systems, early detection radars, point defense systems, ground-based interceptors, and visual observers were able to protect storage tanks, safety, critical equipment. Accounts of some interception successes alongside secondary fires indicate a mixed defensive outcome, where some assets were shot down while others managed to cause damage. We must emphasize that assessing performance also involves distinguishing between kinetic damage and consequential operational losses. A strike that damages fuel blending units or catalytic converters may cause months of reduced throughput even if it doesn't produce spectacular long-duration fires. Safety features and mitigation systems played a decisive role in limiting human casualties in this incident, according to the available reports. On-site emergency shutdown protocols, automatic isolation valves, and inerting systems for vulnerable tanks likely prevented larger explosions, while trained firefighting brigades employed foam suppression and water curtains to control flame spread. Additionally, prepositioned mutual aid agreements with municipal and regional fire services and the activation of national industrial emergency teams speeded the arrival of specialized equipment such as high-expansion foam units and aerial firefighting platforms. Societally, safety also extended beyond the plant perimeter. Authorities issued shelter-in-place advisories for nearby communities, set up temporary evacuation centers for residents with respiratory issues, and deployed air quality monitoring teams to guide public health warnings. An important safety consideration in such incidents is the management of contaminated runoff and the protection of downstream water sources. Industrial responders will typically establish containment booms and absorbent materials to trap oily runoff from firefighting, a labor-intensive but critical part of preventing environmental damage after the flames are out. Looking at unique selling points, phrased technically as unique operational attributes, this incident underscores several shifts in contemporary conflict that policymakers must note. First, the ability of attackers to reach strategic economic nodes, such as major refineries, demonstrates how energy infrastructure is both economically critical and geopolitically attractive as a lever. Second, the shift to distributed low-cost delivery systems, whether drones, cruise munitions, or other stand-off platforms, means that attackers can impose disproportionate economic costs without engaging in traditional large-scale military operations. Third, the symbolic impact of hitting a major refinery is high. It sends a signal about reach, persistence, and a capacity to impose long-term operational disruption, which can influence commodity markets, domestic politics, and international bargaining calculations. Fourth, the resilience of defenders now depends as much on redundancy and dispersed storage as it does on hardened process units, facilities that can quickly switch to alternative supply chains or bypass damaged units fare better. When it comes to price and economic implications, damage to a large refinery can have immediate local effects. Short-term shortages, spikes in regional fuel prices, and logistical bottlenecks, and longer-term effects if key process units require weeks or months to repair. These repairs are capital-intensive, requiring replacement catalytic converters, precision, machine tower internals, and comprehensive safety recertifications before restart. Beyond direct repair costs, there are also ripple effects. Insurance premiums for energy infrastructure rise, investors reevaluate project risk, and companies may reroute exports or adjust hedging strategies to manage supply disruptions. On a national level, repeated hits on energy infrastructure can lower export volumes, reduce government revenues from state-controlled energy firms, and create political pressure to prioritize domestic security spending over other investments. For ordinary citizens, the practical takeaways are concrete. Follow official guidance for shelter and air quality advisories. Avoid amplifying unverified footage that may circulate in the immediate aftermath, and support community response organizations that help vulnerable people through temporary disruptions. From a broader strategic perspective, this event, if confirmed as reported, will likely accelerate conversations among allied nations about protecting critical infrastructure, tightening export controls on dual-use components, and investing in passive and active defenses for energy sectors. It will also likely provoke diplomatic measures such as formal protests, calls for accountability, and potentially escalatory countermeasures depending on how states choose to respond. In closing, while the flames and images from the exterior create a dramatic first impression, the long interior work of firefighting, forensic investigation, environmental mitigation, and repair will determine the actual human and economic toll. Performance analysis shows both offensive reach and defensive limitations. Safety systems appear to have reduced the worst-case human outcomes so far, and the strategic and price implications are significant and enduring as more verified information becomes available from official investigators and independent monitors. The picture will sharpen. But for now, this incident is a sobering reminder of how modern conflicts increasingly intersect with civilian economic lifelines and urban life, and why building resilient infrastructure and clear emergency procedures matters not just for industry, but for the communities that depend on it.